Good morning. My name is Steve Heacock, and I'm just delighted to be in front of you. I have the privilege of chairing the West Michigan Strategic Alliance, and I think that's why Greg felt compelled to ask me to speak, and I hope he didn't find it to be a mistake. My dear mother, who just turned 80 on Saturday, was the county clerk and register of deeds up at Otsego County for years, and Mom once told me that when people who are speaking really ought to try to be as brilliant as they possibly can be, and she said, in your case, just be quick. So I love her dearly, but she's, and I will be. West Michigan has really a unique relationship and dependence on the environment, and I say that because it's really one of the only assets we offer people, and one of the only reasons people come here to live. If you look on the Michigan Department of Transportation site, there's a question that says, why don't we have toll roads? And it's a question many people have asked over time when they're trying to think about how to repair our roads and keep them in the right condition. And of course the answer is because we're not in the middle of getting from anywhere to anywhere. We're not part of an east-west corridor as are the cities along 94 or 80 or any of those other places. So in fact, to get here, you've got to want to be here. And that's particularly true of West Michigan. It's true of all of Michigan, but Kalamazoo, Detroit have 94. We don't even have that. I mean, you've got to turn left, and oddly enough, and come up here and turn left again to get to West Michigan. And so you've got to want to be here. You do not get here by accident. Well, my youngest daughter got here by accident, but that's a different story. So why do people come, and what is it that's here for people to have? And let me share some personal experience in recruiting. And you've all been there. You've all participated in bringing people to these communities. So probably share the experience. At the Van Andel Institute, we're pretty international in nature. We have people from 17 countries in our institute. Of our 250 employees, probably 30 of them are from the People's Republic of China alone. So it's very much bringing in these experts, these biochemists and others from around the world who have the talent and have what we need to further that research in cancer and other areas. And so how do we sell them? What do we do? I mean, we're competing with cities like Seattle and Boston and San Diego and Paris and London and Beijing, the cities that have really moved forward in this scientific research. And inevitably, I end up taking them to the lake. I end up taking them out to the woods so that they can see how we live and how accessible and how close to us that is. And it's not just recreation and aesthetics. It's very much also the quality of the air, the water, how we perceive how we live. This morning's a great example, and you've all experienced this too. I worked later than I'd like to last night. I'm there at 8:30, and I type out the comments I'm going to make this morning and the map to get here. I, of course, leave it there on the printer and go home. So this morning I had a great tour of Hudsonville, beautiful little community, and before I found this place, of course, I went zipping right past it. And so you're in this great stressful time, and as you think about the topic of today, it's the opposite of that. It's how you relieve stress. And how is it that you make life better and calmer and more controlled? And it really is in our connection as basic humans with nature. We do come of nature, and it is that connection that's very, very important. Greg talked a bit about the millennials that we're working with, and the studies are showing that younger people, and many of you are in this generation, the people, my kids' contemporaries, in fact, do something different. When I came out of school, I found the best job I thought I could find for me happened to be at Price Waterhouse in Detroit, and took the job, and the city was secondary. Maybe that's obvious in that case, but it was secondary. In fact, that's not what's happening today. As Greg mentioned, the studies are showing that these kids have confidence and they have a belief in themselves, and so they move to a city and then find a job, and if they don't find one, they create one. Well, that's the economic development that, in fact, is the engine for the next 30 years of any community. So it's those people that we need to attract here, and how do we do it? What is our asset? We have a huge asset in our environment, but I fear that we take it for granted. And because we take it for granted, we don't work hard enough to preserve it or open it up for public use, and therefore lose that very advantage that we have. Some of those advantages, and let me just share a story with you because it's a passion that I have. I mean, I have a cabin up north, a log cabin, so I do some kayaking. And you know, I'll put my kayak in just past the Ada Dam on Thornapple, which dumps into then the Grand River, and paddle a bit, sometimes early in the morning. And the advantage of paddling the Grand River is that you really don't have to set a car, because you can paddle upstream pretty much as easily as you can paddle downstream, unlike the sturgeon up north where the cabin is. But it's a fantastic experience. And it's not a couple weeks ago, I'm doing that, put it in, the mist is rising off the river, I'm going along at my very slow pace, and I see a bald eagle on top of a tree stump. And not, maybe not unusual for many of you, because you spend the time in the woods. Unusual for me, though, and unusual enough to take note and to pull off to the side of the river and sit and watch the thing for 8 or 10 minutes while it fishes and does its business. Spiritual in nature. I mean, one of those experiences that got rid of 8 days of bad work, if you know what I mean. That's miles from my home. It's miles from all of your homes, and it's one exceptional experience out of many. And it's, I realize that's an oxymoron. How can it be exceptional if there are many? But if it's, you know, walking the sand in Muskegon, if it's walking the Sheep Ranch Trail up near Baldwin, if it's, you know, the great amenities that Holland has to offer, or the exceptional forest and woods that exist nearby, we have it here. And other cities do not have the same thing. When I lived in Detroit, I would drive a good hour and a half before I felt like I was out of the city on my way north. Here I get north of Rockford. I'm surrounded now by this tunnel of beautiful red pines with a white pine every now and then peeking up, and then maple forest as well. That's the nature of where we get to live. And it's the advantage we have over the rest of the world in bringing in that next generation of people who will, in fact, create the economic prosperity that we've gotten used to. Let me share my experience as chair of the Kent County Board of Commissioners, and I was very proud to have served in that role. I think I was there. Did I see Mary here? Is Mary Swanson here? Yeah, hi, Mary. I think I was there from '96 to 2002, if I'm not mistaken. I was vice chair the second year, and then served the rest of the time as chair of the board. And I use the example because, first of all, I want to brag. I'm very proud of what we got done at that time. But secondly, I want to share the idea that really ordinary people, if they're willing to serve in that kind of role, can get some things done in this arena. And let me share successes and failures regarding the green infrastructure that I believe we had, and others could argue this. But within that time frame, what had happened annually is the Parks Department would prepare kind of a 5-year plan on park development, and until that point in time, basically the funding for it was through state grants, and then if they capture anything through, because people couldn't pay taxes. So those were really the two ways that they gained park land. There had not been an active purchase of a park for 65 years or something, as I recall. We changed that, and I had run on the idea that green lands were important. I'm no expert, as probably as obvious as Soji and these other folks are, but I enjoy it and think it's important for our community. So I stand in front of you as ordinary citizen that cares about green matters. So that was one of the things I listed that I would try to get done when I ran, and it helped me get elected. And that's point number one I want to make, is that we can affect who sits on those township boards and county boards where much of this work is done. In fact, we can control it if we choose to, because we can go out and find great people to run, and we can support them, and we can get them elected. That's how it's done. And it's a great system, right? We get to say how the future of our community is going to be put together in that regard. Now, you have to be willing to put up with township or county board meetings if you're going to do it, and you have to have some passion for the issue. But we have the ability to do that as ordinary citizens. So anyway, I ran on that theme, got there, got in some position to be able to handle it. Chairman Pat Malone, wonderful man, appointed me because I asked him to, chair of a subcommittee on parkland acquisition. We did a 6-week study, put together a report, and said, indeed, we could do this. We had enough in reserves to get something done. So what's in the success column? Millennium Park is in the success column. Millennium Park came out of that movement. Millennium Park will be, at its completion, a 1,500-acre urban park that will be very accessible to Tom's students at Grand Valley and to the rest of the citizens, not only on the west side of the city, but throughout the city. And we'll be there forever. 100 years from now, that'll be very meaningful, as it will likely be surrounded by city and taller buildings, twice the size of Central Park. What does it have? It'll have some 7 miles of canoe trails with connected lakes. It'll have some 15 miles of hiking trails. It is a beautiful, beautiful asset that will serve this population and be an attractor for this population for years to come. We bought land. It was some of the last remaining vacant land on the Thornapple River, about a mile of riverfront. Hasn't been developed yet. May not be developed as a park for another 10, 15 years because there's no money to do it. But guess what? It's preserved. It's there and set aside. And it was, I have no problem with developers. In fact, you know, thank goodness they're around. We need housing for our people as well. But we really did get it just before the developers took it to make a 400-home setting on it. So very exciting when you canoe, kayak past that land. It's a great source for wildlife and for some runoffs on water and things. So that's there. We bought some land up in Lowell that has some unique topography and plants within it. Again, it's just setting aside. It's just an asset that sits in the coffers. And there was land that we added to other parks, the Waughfield Park and others, that we were very serious about trying to get. Another victory another success that we achieved was a farmland preservation program. We put it in place. Didn't feel like we'd get it done, but with the help of a lot of folks who were in the room, we did get it done. And in fact, it has done some good. But I want to mention that also as one of our failures. It was very interesting to me how the Grand Rapids home builders were very supportive of farmland preservation until we did it. and suddenly they were strongly opposed. And that political machinery that can work to create good can also work to create somebody else's perception of good. And it was a very, very interesting process. So we did not get done as much as we would have liked to. I would have liked to see it funded with some county dollars and with some flow of money. I would have liked to see it expanded beyond the 25,000 acres that was there to the 90,000 that was originally planned. And I would have liked to see it a more robust program. But thanks to many folks, it continues, it grows, it is at least there to go forward. Other failures we had, the sustainability of the programming. I'd really hoped to emulate Ottawa County and put in a millage so that indeed there would be money set aside so this $20 million budget item in King County would be something that would be considered pretty ordinary. We spent about that in this program, by the way, but it would be pretty ordinary and something that then would sustain year to year. Did not get that done. At the time, we were flush. We had great economic success, so the decision was made to, we'll just allocate a portion of the millage that already exists to parkland acquisition and preservation and to open land. And the thinking was our good fortune would continue, therefore that money would always be there to move aside. Well, of course, that ended about 3 years later. And so I do regret that feasibility. So we had successes, we had failures. Again, the point, though, is that a lot can be done by a pretty ordinary citizen. I certainly didn't do it alone either. I don't mean to say that. It was a whole group of ordinary citizens. But you got to be willing to do the work and get up there and get on the boards and participate and state your beliefs as they are. Let me leave you with this. Charles Lindbergh in 1927 once said that geez, you know, what man will want to live with concrete walls and concrete floors and without a view of the birds flying by? And he said this is sort of a mineral quality of life. And We don't want to live that way, and we don't have to, particularly here in West Michigan. We have these natural amenities, but they're only ours as long as we take care of them and as long as we make certain that we focus on them and make them, sustain them for future generations. So thank you very much. I appreciate your attention.